Hello guys, welcome back again to another incredible reaction. If you're new, I'm Lauren and it's my pleasure to have you here. Alright, today we'll be checking out a video from Finland, and this one is about this one is titled Finnish Viking Age, the history of Finland animated part 3. Okay. Alright, I've done a previous video of the Finnish Stone Age, and today we'll be checking out Finland Viking Age. Alright, I really can't wait to check this out with you guys. So sit back, relax, and let's roll.
The age when Vikings terrorized places across Europe and beyond was similar in Finland. The Finnic peoples did their fair share of raiding and trading with and against the Scandinavian Vikings. Finland was also far more prosperous than previously thought, with extensive ownership of the highest quality swords of the time. The Viking Age is known as the Late Iron Age in Finland, but before the Late Iron Age it is only logical that there was an Early Iron Age, and that's where we should start the video. The use of iron started to spread into Finland from the east around 500 BCE. Unlike the previously introduced bronze, iron made a big difference in people's lives. It was available in the Finnish soil in lakes and bogs and wasn't necessary to import. So the metal culture spread rather quickly across Finland. Taro, sentenced, Stratovarius, impaled Nazarene and Amorphis were among the important early bands. After the migration period in Europe, the Finnish metal scene started to truly take a unique shape. Weapons and jewelry developed their own styles, and the music was heavily melodic. The use of bronze didn't end, of course, but focused more on jewelry than weapons and tools. Iron, as a lighter and sturdier material, was game-changing for agriculture and warfare. And it is at this point where farming became the dominant livelihood in the south and west, while hunter-gatherers, including the Sami, prevailed deeper inland. Because iron was such a game-changer, it also heavily affected the beliefs of the time. The birth of iron appears many times in ancient runes, and the metal was given supernatural powers. Iron tools or weapons, when hung on top of doors and windows, would repel trolls. The god Ilmarinen also descended from the skies, added credits for its forging to his LinkedIn profile, and became the blacksmith Seppo Ilmarinen. Life didn't end with death, or so we can assume based on the rich burials which included weapons and other objects needed in the afterlife. The dead could also return to harass the living, and possibly for this reason the swords placed in the graves were sometimes broken. Or it could also have been simply to prevent grave robberies. The cemeteries were often sacred places, many of which were later on largely defiled and destroyed by the church. Burials were at first lit AF until Christian habits of coffins started to slowly gain foothold. The new religion spread slowly both from the Catholic Church after the conversion of Scandinavia, as well as from the Orthodox Church in the East. The Finnic tribes, however, largely remained pagan during the Iron Age, empowered by Vaki, the omnipresent spirit or power. One of the first written accounts of Finnic peoples is in Germania by the Roman historian Tacitus around 98 CE. Whether he actually referred to ancestors of modern Finns, Sami, or some other people, we may never know, but the Proto-Finns theory has been suggested by Professor Juha Pentikäinen. Another Iron Age mention is from the Anglo-Saxon poem Widsith that is sometimes interpreted to mention a mythical Finnish king Kaleva. Although some of the old bronze trade routes died during the Iron Age, trading didn't end by any means. Furs were the most important export product, and the Vikings' eastern route all the way to the Black Sea passed by the Finnish coast. It was a stop along the way and a likely place to ask for directions for navigating the rugged archipelago. The interaction between the different peoples wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. Runestones and sagas tell of Viking raids to Finland that ended in bloodshed. Networks of hill forts were in active use during this time, and the people apparently used them with great success in defending against raids. The saga of Olaf Haraldsson says, "They sailed to Finland and plundered there, and went up the country. All the people fled to the forest, and they had emptied their houses of all household goods. The king went far up the country and through some woods, and came to some dwellings in a valley called Herdalen, where, however, they made but small booty and saw no people, and it was getting late in the day. The king turned back to his ships. Now when they came into the woods again, people rushed upon them from all quarters, and made a severe attack. The king told his men to cover themselves with their shields, but before they got out of the woods he lost many people, and many were wounded, but at last, late in the evening, he got to his ships. The Finlanders conjured up in the night, by their witchcraft, a dreadful storm and bad weather on the sea, but the king ordered the anchors to be weighed and sail hoisted, and beat off all night to the outside of the land. The king's luck prevailed more than the Finlanders' witchcraft, for he had the luck to beat round the Balagard side in the night, and so got out to the sea. But the Finnish army proceeded on land, making the same progress as the king made with his ships. Despite the previous being a mythical saga, we can say that the Finnic tribes were often more than capable of repelling attackers. It is worth noting that there was no national Finnish identity yet, nor would there be for centuries, but rather tribes that spoke an early form of Finnish, and they fought against each other too. The larger hill forts could have served as centers of government as well, although we can't say for sure. The lack of written evidence does not mean that something couldn't have existed, and it is likely that chieftains or petty kings ruled over several settlements. What is interesting and still relatively ignored, although I try to push it in my videos, is the huge number of Iron Age swords found in Finland, which is a big deal as swords were invaluable at the time and a sign of power and wealth. Many so-called Ulfbert swords have also been found. It was like an iPhone or Ferrari of its time, with the exception of the Ulfbert swords actually being useful. The strong presence of swords paints an entirely different picture of Iron Age Finland than the common idea of mud-dwelling savages, which was deeply rooted in people's minds during the later Swedish rule. It was of course a tough time to live compared to modern times. The climate, although slightly warmer than today, was harsh and survival took a lot of effort. Both men and women played an important role in the daily tasks, and this potentially led to greater appreciation of women in Northern Europe. The houses were wooden, built both with horizontal logs as well as earth-covered stave frames. They typically had only one room with a hearth in the middle for cooking and heating. There were no chimneys, only small vents where the smoke would escape slowly, and a thick cloud of smoke by the ceiling. Farming, hunting and foraging were typical daily tasks. Besides the previously introduced domestic goats, pigs, dogs and sheep, horses started to appear during the Iron Age. The clothing was nothing like the horse shit we see in modern TV shows. No studded leather and biker vests. The clothing was made of wool, linen, hemp, furs and nettle. Wealthier people would include extensive jewelry and more colorful fabrics. Because the people didn't own piles of fast fashion garbage like today, the clothes were of higher quality and made to last. Speaking of fast fashion garbage, if you want to support the making of these videos by grabbing a shirt, you can do so in my shop linked in the description. The Iron Age is the last period of Finland's prehistory, ending with the so-called Swedish Crusades to Finland and the establishing of the church. But more about that in the next episode. Do consider subscribing if you haven't already, in order not to miss it.
Okay,
And if you
guys,
want to
that
support the
was
making of this with
quite
your wallet, you
enlightening.
can consider
Wow.
becoming a member of the channel.
Alright, now I
And as
get
always,
the
if
picture
Finnish
of why
mythology and history are close to
women
your
in
heart,
Europe,
see a
in modern
cardiologist
Europe, has
and then
become
check out
so
my other
involved
videos.
in the development of their states. This is amazing, guys. It's great. Alright, I'll see you again in the next episode. I remain your girl. Bye.